Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Steven's going to be teaching you an original song that I wrote and I'm calling Daft Punk. So this name is a play on words for the band Daft Punk. And back in 2013, they had a huge radio hit with the song Get Lucky. Now this was a song I used to play live with the band that I gigged with at the time, and I always thought it was a super fun song to play at shows. Number one, because it had a lot of energy. It was an upbeat, fun tune, but number two, because of the syncopated strum pattern that the guitar plays in that song. And that strum pattern is 100% funk inspired. Now, one night I had the idea to write my own tune that was inspired by Get Lucky, but I wanted to be a little bit different. I didn't want to write a strum pattern that was 100% funk. I wanted to write one that was 50% funk, 50% rock, and I think I hit the nail on the head with this tune. So with this song, you're going to learn a strum pattern that is probably new to you. It's going to challenge you from a rhythmic standpoint. So it is a bit syncopated and it's played at a pretty brisk tempo. Both of those make it a little bit challenging to play, but if you've been looking for a piece to level up your rhythm playing ability, this is going to be a great one to jump into. Now, the good thing about this rhythm part is that you can play it on high G ukulele or low G ukulele. It works for both tunings. But this song does play the bonus round because, as you saw in the performance, there is a second ukulele that joins in. That second ukulele was played with an electric uke, and it is a baritone tuned ukulele. So if you have a baritone ukulele, you can join in on the fun. The baritone ukulele doubles the rhythm part of the high G ukulele, but it also adds some melodic lines and licks that play on top of it. So in the part 2 lesson, Steven is going to be teaching the baritone part, but in this lesson, which is the part 1 lesson, you're going to be learning that high G or low G ukulele rhythm section in its entirety. So with that said, if you do want to jump into that part 2 lesson, you can do so by clicking this link right here or going to the site rockclass101.com, doing a search for the song's name. Now also on that page will be the tabs that you can print off to follow along with, plus the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a great feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. And last but not least, we are going to have backing tracks for this song. So we're going to have one that omits what you're learning in this part 1 lesson, which is the high G ukulele part that Evan plays. And then we're going to have another backing track that omits that electric uke part. So if you learn the baritone part, which we teach in the part 2 lesson, you can rock out with the band at home. So those are going to be available in 100% speed, 75% speed, and if you can fill the beat, I'll upload 50% as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hand it off to Steven to teach you how to play this, and then I'll catch you at the end of the video.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this lesson on Daft Punk, which is another really cool and super fun to play original composition from Andrew. In this lesson, we'll break down Evan's strumming pattern for the main ukulele part of this arrangement, and then in part 2, we'll look at those cool lead riffs that AJ is playing in baritone tuning. Okay, so for this lesson, you'll need your high G ukulele, just in standard G, C, E, A tuning. We're just in 4/4 time, so we have 4 quarter note beats to each measure, and we're aiming for a fairly brisk, funky tempo of around 160 BPM. Now the thing that really makes this arrangement unique, in my opinion, is that kind of funk-inspired strumming pattern. It's probably not a strumming pattern you've encountered before, if ever, so I think it's important to break that down first to really embed that right hand pattern. And once you've got the strumming pattern down, the whole arrangement becomes fairly easy to learn. There aren't too many chord shapes, and while some of the transitions are a little tricky, you should be able to master them with a little bit of practice. Okay, so in terms of the rhythm, the first thing to establish is that we want our strumming hand to be moving in a kind of continuous 8th note pattern. So we'll strum down on the beat and then up on the hands in between the beats and just kind of keep the hand going in that continuous up-down motion. So just on open strings, one measure in terms of the eighth note strumming pattern would sound like this. Okay, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so when it comes to playing the piece, obviously we won't be making contact with the strings on every down strum and up strum like I've just done there. That's just to highlight the importance of keeping that hand moving in that continuous kind of up and down eighth note pattern. That's going to be essential for keeping a nice consistent rhythm when playing this piece. Okay, so let's look at the actual strumming pattern that we want to achieve. If you look at the tab below, you can see that most of the strumming actually occurs on the offbeat using an up strum. That's what's going to give us that kind of unique funk inspired sound here. So we do a down strum on beat 1, followed by an up strum on the and after beat 1. But then on beat 2, we still move the hand down as if we're going to do a down strum, but we don't make contact with the strings. We just want to keep that hand moving, like I said, in that continuous motion. So the down strum on beat 2 doesn't happen, but then the up strum after beat 2 on the and after beat 2, we do make contact then. Then we do another down strum miss on beat 3, and then an up strum on the and after beat 3, another down strum miss on beat 4, and then an up strum on the and after beat 4. Okay, so put that all together quite slowly. We would have down, up, miss, up, miss, up, miss, up. Okay, then play that a bit quicker. Even quicker again. Okay, so that still doesn't sound quite right. If you think about the performance video that you've just heard from Evan, it doesn't sound the same as what I've just played there. That's because the up strums, when Evan plays this, are cut short. They're not allowed to ring over the beat like I've just demonstrated. So just to take this strumming pattern to the next level, we'll build it up to the next stage by adding these kind of palm mutes to stop the strings from ringing after each up strum. So the way to achieve that is we do our down strum as normal on beat 1, and then our up strum on the and after beat 1. But then to stop that up strum from ringing, when we bring our hand down on beat 2, remember we don't actually strum on beat 2, we're just bringing our hand down to keep our hand moving in that continuous eighth note pattern. But when we do bring the hand down, just use the palm of the strumming hand just to mute the strings and stop them from ringing. Okay, so if we just do kind of beats 1 and 2 with the mute on beat 2 to show you how that would sound. A bit slower. Okay, so the hand moves down on beat 2, but we just kind of bend the wrist a little bit so that the palm can kind of come towards the strings, a little bend like that. Just allows the palm, kind of the heel of the hand rather than the palm actually, just to mute those strings. Okay, and if we combine that technique into the rest of the measure, we would have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that's probably kind of the speed that we want to be playing at when we're playing at the right tempo. Okay, so that's how we achieve it. Obviously I've done that on open strings there just to make it easier while we're kind of working on the right hand. We would be holding a chord while we're doing this when we're playing it properly. So the other thing we can do just to kind of help get that muted sound is when we are going to do a palm mute with the strumming hand, it helps, I think, just to take the pressure off the chord that we're fretting with the left hand at the same time. So taking the pressure off mutes the chord, the right hand muting the strings. It's probably overkill, but it just kind of makes sure that everything stops ringing on those down strums on the beat. So if I do that with a G minor chord, slowly at first. Okay, do that again. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. and then play it at kind of tempo that we want to be aiming for. Okay, that's what we're trying to achieve there. So I'll play that a little bit slower just on this G minor chord. So if you want to get yourself a G minor chord held, and then I'll just kind of play that pattern, just repeating for a few measures. Feel free just to join in with me and kind of play that to try and get a feel for that rhythm. I'll go quite slow. Okay, so if I just start playing, you just join me when you feel ready. And then just final demo, kind of at the tempo that we want. Brill. Okay, so once you've got that pattern down, I think we'll be okay. Once you've got it, the rest of the piece now should be pretty easy to learn. So we'll move into the A section now and start having a look at how we can apply that strumming pattern to the chord progression. So now that we have our right hand strumming pattern sorted, this whole A section should be fairly straightforward to learn because we just need to concentrate on what the left hand is doing. So if we look at the first 4 measures through together to begin with, I'll play those through and then we'll have a look at how to achieve those chord changes. So the first 4 measures should sound like this. Okay, so measure 1 is just this G minor chord, and we just hold that chord for the whole measure 1 and then just apply our standard strumming pattern to that chord. Okay, and then into measure 2, we just want to turn this into a B flat 6 chord. So all we'll do is we'll leave these 2 fingers on, the first and the second finger, hop the 3rd finger onto the G string at the 3rd, and then the pinky will replace that 3rd finger on the E string at the 3rd. And then again, we just play our standard strumming pattern to that chord. And then into measure 3, we want to turn this now into a D minor chord. So there's 2 ways of doing this. And the way Evan does it on the performance video is he uses the 1st finger and hops it onto the E string at the 1st, and then uses the 2nd finger, flattens his knuckle down to do this kind of half bar across the G string and the C string at the 2nd, and then lifting the finger up at the knuckle so that it clears away from the E string so it doesn't mute it. And that's just one way of playing the D minor chord. Okay, and then once you're in position there, again, our standard right hand strumming pattern. Okay, so at that point there where we change into the D minor chord, I think there's no real benefit to doing it the way Evan does. You could just hold a standard D minor chord using these 2 fingers, the 2nd and 3rd finger on the G string and the C string there. I think that works perfectly well as well from the B flat 6 chord, which isn't that, it's that. I think that change there to the D minor works just as well. But try it both ways, try Evan's way, try the alternative way, whatever you prefer, just go with whatever's the most comfortable. Okay, so once we've played the D minor chord for measure 3, all we're going to do now is turn it into an A minor chord, which is a pretty easy transition because all we have to do is take the 1st finger off and the 3rd finger off, leave that 2nd finger on, the G string at the 2nd, and then we have our A minor chord. And again, we apply our standard right hand strumming pattern. Okay, so those 4 measures once again. Smashing. So let's have a go at playing those 4 measures through together now. 2 and 3 and 4 and... On to the next 4 measures now, measures 5 through to 8, they should sound like this. Okay, so as you can see, that is quite tricky there, some quite difficult transitions, and the transitions happen quite quickly as well. So as we go through these 4 measures, we'll look at how to make the transitions as efficient as possible so they can happen kind of at the speed that they need to. So measure 5 is easy enough because we're just back to the G minor chord, so just the same as measure 1 here for measure 5. But now to get into this B flat 6 chord nice and quickly, what we'll do is we'll keep the 3rd finger on the E string and use that to kind of guide your hand up the neck towards the 6th fret where it's going to land. But as we're moving the hand up, consciously swap these 2 fingers over so that they're on each other's string. So the 1st finger is on the C string and the 2nd finger is hovering over the A string. And then when the 3rd finger gets to that 6th fret, these 2 fingers will be pretty much in position, ready to drop onto the 5th fret behind. And then we've got our B flat 6 chord there. So as you're moving the hand up from the G minor, consciously be moving the 1st and 2nd finger so they're ready to drop on. And practice that kind of change to get it really quite quick. Because it does need to be when we change each measure here. So that measure 6, once we're in position, dead easy because we just do our standard right hand strumming pattern. And then the next change into measure 7 is another tricky one because again we're moving up the neck even higher and we're coming to this D minor add 11 chord, which sounds very tricky, but really it's just the same as the G minor shape but further up the neck. So again, lead with the 3rd finger. We'll keep that on the E string because it's going to land at the 10th fret when we want to be in this D minor add 11 chord. So the 3rd finger starts leading the hand up. Again, as we're doing it, swap these 2 fingers back over because they're going to go back to this kind of G minor type shape. When the 3rd finger hits the 10th fret, we can drop these on. 1st finger takes the 8th fret on the A string, 2nd finger takes the C string at the 9th, and then in position there. Okay, so from there, swapping these 2 fingers over as the 3rd finger leads us up. Okay. And it does need to be kind of that quick when we're playing it at tempo. Okay. So once we're in position for the start of measure 7, we then just play our standard right hand strumming pattern. And then measure 8, we want to turn this into an A minor 7 chord now. So what we'll do is we'll move the 1st finger down 1 fret to the 7th. As we do that, hop these 2 fingers onto each other's string, swap them over. So the 2nd finger hops over to the E, 3rd finger hops over to the C, and then we're in position there for the A minor 7 chord for the start of measure 8. Nice. So I'll play those 4 measures through slowly, and then I'll play them again at the kind of tempo that we want to be aiming for. Okay, now slightly faster. Brilliant. So let's have a go at playing those 4 measures through together now. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So once we've played measure 8, we pretty much just repeat this chord progression through once again. The only difference comes in measure 16 because that's going to lead us then into the B section. So measures 9 through to 15 are identical to measures 1 to 7. So they'll sound like this. So that last upstrum there takes us to the end of measure 15, and then when we go into measure 16 now, we're changing the rhythm here for the first time in this piece, but it's fairly straightforward because we're just playing down strums on the beat for this measure. So beat 1 is this A minor 7 chord where we have the A string at the 7th, which we hold with the pinky, and then the C string at the 4th, which we hold with the first finger. Make sure that first finger kind of loops over, bring the wrist forward a bit if you need to, just so that it doesn't catch the E string, because we want the E string to ring open and the G string to ring open as well. So strum through that chord. Really cool octave sound there on beat 1. And then on beat 2, we just move that all up 1 fret to the 5th and the 8th, again with the 2 open strings. So strum through that chord on beat 2. And then back to the A minor 7 chord for beat 3, so just back down 1 fret to where we were. Strum through that on beat 3, and then we'll bring the first finger over onto the A string at the 3rd, and that's it, the rest of them open. And then we strum through that C chord on beat 4. So just that measure 16 we would have. And if I play it with measure 15 just to see how we transition into that, we would have. Nice. So let's have a go at playing just those last 2 measures, measures 15 and 16 through together now. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So onto the B section now. This is the point where the baritone starts playing those little lead riffs over these chords. So we're going to change the rhythm here for this B section just to let the baritone kind of do the talking while this ukulele rhythm part just backs off a little bit. So it should be all plain sailing from here, hopefully, because we've learned pretty much everything we need to in terms of the chords and the chord progressions. We just have this different rhythm, but like I say, it's totally stripped back rhythm compared to the A section, so it should be really easy from this point on. So for the first 4 measures of this B section, measures 17 through to 20, we're using the same chord progression as measures 1 to 4, but like I said before, we're just literally playing on beat 1 of each measure with a down strum, and then that's it. So measure 17 is the G minor chord, strum through that on beat 1, let it ring through that whole measure. Then measure 18, we come to this B flat 6 chord, same as we did in measure 2, but this time, again, just 1 strum through on beat 1, letting it ring. And then measure 19, we go to the D minor chord. And then on measure 20, we come to the A minor chord. Okay, so much more laid back feel here for this one. Nice little rest for both hands, really. So then into measure 21, we come back to this G minor chord, down strum on beat 1, let it ring out for the rest of the measure. Then measure 22, we come up to this different version of the B flat 6 chord, which we've seen before. Again, strum on beat 1, letting that ring out for that whole measure. But then on measure 23, we have a little change to the rhythm here, but the chord is the same as what we would normally move to. So we come up to this D minor add 11 chord. We play that on beat 1. We let that ring over beat 2, but now we play it again on beat 3. And then straight into beat 4, we move this down to this kind of octave version of the A minor 7 chord at the 7th fret on the A string, 4th fret on the C string. Okay, so just that measure 23 with that slightly varied rhythm, we would have. Okay, and then into measure 24, we don't actually play on beat 1, we just let that A minor 7 chord ring over beat 1 of measure 24. And then on beat 2, we move this shape up 1 fret and then play that on beat 2, then we move it back down a fret to where it was to play that on beat 3, and then to the C chord like we did at the end of the A section. First finger takes that A string at the 3rd to finish off with that C chord. Okay, so just those last 2 measures, measure 23 and 24, we would have. Nice. And if I play those with the previous 2 measures, measures 21 and 22, just to see how it kind of all fits together, we would have. Brill. Okay, so let's have a go at playing measures 21 through to 24 together now. 1, 2, 3, 4. So once we've played measure 24, we kind of just repeat that section through once again, just with a slight variation at the end in measure 32. So measures 25 through to 31 are just the same as measures 17 to 23. So they'll sound like this. So that chord there was the end of measure 31, and then into measure 32, similar to measure 24, we don't play on beat 1, we just let that A minor 7 chord ring over beat 1, and then on beat 2 we move it up a fret and play that with a down strum on beat 2. But now we keep this shape moving up the neck, we move it up another 2 frets, so the pinky lands on the 10th and the first finger lands on the 7th. And then we strum that with a down strum on beat 3. And then we move it up another 2 frets, so the pinky's on the 12th and the first is on the 9th. And we strum that through. And that takes us then to the end of that B section. So just that measures 31 and 32 once again should sound like this. Brill. So on to the C section now. This should all be fairly straightforward as well because we've seen all this before. This section is essentially just the same as the second half of the A section. So measures 33 all the way through to measure 40 are just identical to measures 9 to 16. So they should sound like this. So that C chord there was the end of measure 40, and then into measure 41, which is the final measure of the piece, we just come to this different version of a D minor chord just to finish the piece off nicely. So we'll bring the first finger up to the 5th fret and do a full bar across the 5th fret. Then the third finger, we'll take the G string at the 7th, and then we just strum that chord on beat 1 just to finish off the piece there. So I hope you have loads of fun learning that piece. It's super fun to play with that kind of funky rhythm. If you want to learn the baritone part, then come and join me in the part 2 lesson where I'll be teaching you how to play that.
All right, guys, so you have learned the entire rhythm section for the main ukulele, which again can be played with high G or low G ukulele. Now, if you want to learn what the baritone, that electric uke, plays on top of what you just learned, Steven's going to be teaching that in the part 2 lesson, which you can check out by clicking this link right here or going to the site rockclass101.com, doing a search for the song's name. Now, also on that page were the tabs that you can print off to keep for your records, plus that really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer so you can literally hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time, highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed, all that fun jazz, and last but not least, backing tracks. So we will have 2 backing tracks available for download. The first one omits what you just learned in this lesson, and then the second backing track omits the baritone part. So once you learn either of these parts, you'll be able to rock out with the band at home. We are going to upload the backing tracks in 100% speed, 75% speed, and if you can feel the beat, we'll have 50% as well. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we will catch you in the part 2 lesson. Take care.